Khunkhun, CEO of Dolly Varden Silver. Um, as I said, I think Shawn is actually the best CEO of any silver junior out there. Shawn, let's start with big picture silver topic. I'm a technician, and I remember the February 2021 quote unquote silver squeeze and how sort of short lived that was. Silver went from like 26 to 30 in a week, and then it quickly fizzled and kind of went into a little cyclical bear market for a year or two. But this time, silver, I mean, we're at 32.24 right now on the futures. And this one feels a lot different to me. It feels like, kind of as I said, like we're still early here. It doesn't feel like this is about to roll over and die. What's your take?
It's funny because I was just talking to my team this morning about that exact moment during the silver squeeze when we did go to 30 and how this is very, very different. I was looking at some data coming out of China, and the demand for silver today is scheduled to be 50% greater than it was a year ago. So, and I think, you look at what's happened, with the copper squeeze, you look at gold at record prices in all currencies. And, it's starting to feel like we're in the early stages of a bull market. The silver to gold ratio has gone from 125 to 1, which we experienced about 4 years ago, and it's down to about 73. So it's trading at a 52-week low. And that's a great sign. And not only am I seeing it in the price of silver, but I'm also seeing it in the mining shares. They're starting to lead the price of gold. And I think these are all indications that we're starting to move into a very, very strong precious metals bull market.
Yeah, and just in terms of sentiment, like, obviously social media is not a perfect sentiment indicator, but it's pretty good. I think it might be the best thing we have as far as one single sentiment tell. And I remember back to whether it was August 2020 or February 2021, and people seemed a lot more euphoric. And I saw a lot more people tagging the hashtag silver squeeze. And I haven't hardly seen any of that in the last month. And yet, this price action is much more bullish than any of those prior periods. And, if you look at the weekly chart, like zoom out silver like 6 years or something. I mean, like, not only is this like a multi-year high, but this is coming off of a very well constructed basing pattern. So from a technical standpoint, this carries quite a bit of weight, in my opinion, and the fact that we're not seeing a lot of silver headlines out there just kind of makes me think that, yeah, this move could still be early.
I also think that the West is asleep at the wheel right now. I'm surrounded by people that have been in the industry for a long time and that are, in their 60s and moving toward their 70s. And I don't know if it's complacency. I don't know if it's just, if it's wealth. I don't know what it is, but I don't think they understand what's driving this new market and how different it is today than we've seen in previous markets. I think, people have gotten very, very comfortable in the range that we've been in. And, there's almost this feeling that, to lock in or hedge, in that $25 price range, because that's a good price for silver. Most of these companies, ASICs is around 20. And I just think we're in a totally different market, and you're seeing it led by the Chinese investor, by the Indian investor, and it's why they're willing to pay, $3 to $6 an ounce premiums to get the physical. And I think we're going to see something play out that is going to surprise some people, and I think we're seeing it. Like, you just have to go back a couple of months. We were $23 an ounce, and we're 32 today. Um, and so, yeah, no, and I look at the outlook. If you consider that 72% of silver is produced as a byproduct, and you look at the outlook for some of the other metals like copper, um, I'm concerned about where we're going to get all the silver the world is now demanding. Not necessarily today, or maybe even not next year, but if you start looking out 2 or 3 years, where are we going to get the silver? I know, for our project as a primary silver mine, you can't just throw money at it and produce more. It doesn't work that way. And so I think we're going to find ourselves in a position where, when as the world is asking for more and more silver, as industry, as solar, as the investment demand picks up, as it does, when you move into precious metals bull markets, it's investment demand that really drives prices. We've got a scenario today where just solar and just Indian demand is 35% of the market today. That has nothing to do with Chinese demand. It has nothing to do with the rest of the world. Just India and solar today, 35% of the market. And solar is moving to 50% of the market. So I think it bodes well for prices. And it's why I focused the last 4 years of my career on silver.
Yeah, you planted the seeds when silver was out of favor. Um, there's 2 days left in the month of May. There's two trading days, left in the month of May. But right now, the monthly candlestick for silver is a sight to behold, up 21% for the month of May, and breaking out to the highest level since 2011. So, as a CEO of Dolly Varden, a company that has a lot of silver and a lot of gold in the ground, how do these moves in the prices of gold and silver, how does it affect Dolly Varden, and how does it affect your planning as a CEO and the strategy of the company?
It's a good question. I'd be lying to say that I'm not, focused on the price of silver, and that I could sit here and say, well, look, we've got this incredibly high grade project, and the price of silver doesn't, it doesn't affect our decisions. But the reality is, you know, these projects are incredibly sensitive to the price of silver. And so, look, when I came into Dolly 4 years ago, I looked at the silver market through the context of a 3 year trailing price, which at the time was $16 an ounce. So the lens at which I approached the project was $16 silver. And at the time, the company had about 44 million ounces of silver in the ground. And I work with a very, very conservative scientific team that really tries to look at real world economics, and tries to factor in real world numbers. This is not a project that we're trying to do desktop exploration or desktop mining. And so we looked at it conservatively, and what we realized through a $16 lens was we needed to grow it. We needed to grow the 44 million ounces of silver, and the hope was, can we double it? Can we take it to over 80 million ounces? And we thought if we could do that, because of the grade, the project would have a shot. And so, to answer your question about, how does, so we're trying to look at the market with a 3 year trailing price and approach it in that manner. Um, And so our approach is fairly conservative. And again, our project, most of our peers, the average grade is about 188 gram silver EQ. Ours is north of 400 grams per ton silver equivalent. So we are focused on grade, and we don't need $30 silver for the project to work. And we have successfully taken the project through that 88 million ounce silver EQ. We acquired the Homestake project, which is just to the north of us. So today we've got 64 million ounces of silver and 1 million ounces of gold. And if we express that as a silver equivalent, it's about 150 million ounces of silver EQ.
So last week you announced the start of the drill program. The 2024 season has commenced, and it's going to be 25,000 meters of diamond drilling, or at least that's the plan today. It could change, I imagine. And I think you got 3 rigs going right now. So tell us, just run down sort of high level, what are the key objectives of this year's program?
Yeah, look, I've got to start off by saying there's a theme in the neighborhood. We're in the Golden Triangle. Outside of our project, outside of our 150 million ounces, there's been about 1 billion ounces of silver discovered. And in addition to the silver, there's been about 155 million ounces of gold. And there's been a lot of copper discovered. Now, what starts as a silver deposit in the triangle has evolved into these really, really rich gold systems. So if we look at Premier, if we look at Eskay, if we look at Brucejack, they all started as the old Dolly Varden silver mine. And so I've always had this idea as I've, gotten to get really familiar with the project, going back to 2019, and then, coming in as CEO in 2020, that as we vectored into the heat source, in addition to this primary silver, we might find ourselves in a very, very large gold system. What happened last year is we moved from the silver rich south, where we were consistently hitting 27, 29 meters of anywhere from 380 to up to 460 grams of silver. And so we're hitting some big intercepts, 25, 30 meters of 400 grams silver. As we moved to the north, we started drilling 90 meters of 200 grams of silver and 2 gram gold. So it's a silver equivalent of under 400 grams per ton silver EQ, but over almost 100 meters. Some of the most impressive intercepts that I've come across in my career. And it was half silver, half gold as we moved north. As we moved further north, outside of our resource, we drilled 12 meters of 80 grams of gold. And that new gold discovery outside of the resource is something that one of our goals, one of our focuses, one of the unanswered questions that we're looking to answer with this year's drill program is, can we build some tonnage up at that new gold discovery? We know we have 1 million ounces in a compliant resource, 1 million ounces of gold in a compliant resource up at Homestake. My question is, can we double it? Does that new gold zone have legs? So a third of the focus, and I think one of the most exciting aspects of this year's drilling, is going to be the drilling we do up at Homestake. That drilling will start in and around mid-July. Now, so that's a third of the focus. A third of the focus is the Homestake drilling, where we're going to follow up on those big intercepts. In 2022, we drilled 25 meters of 45 grams per ton gold. And so, in 2022, the best drill intercept that came out of the Golden Triangle was from Dolly Varden. 2023, the best drill intercept that came out of the Golden Triangle was from Dolly Varden as well. And so we've had some big numbers up at Homestake. So a third of the focus is Homestake. The other third is we're chasing this exciting new discovery at Wolf. Now, if we look at the silver part of the project, we've got a past producing mine. It was Canada's third largest silver mine. It's the Torbrit deposit, where we have about 35 million ounces in a 43101 compliant resource estimate, plus the mine produced 20 million ounces. So it's about call it a 50 million ounce silver deposit. We're trying to find out, so one of the answers one of the questions we're trying to answer in this year's drill program, how many 50 million ounce silver deposits are on the land package? So where we started this year's drilling is we started it in the exploration basket. We went to regional targets like Chance, like Moose, like North Star. Now, Chance is really interesting. Chance is a hit where the company, prior to myself and the new team getting involved with the project, there was a drill hole that Dolly released, and it's actually one of the things that attracted me to the opportunity. The drill hole was 488 grams of silver over 26.5 meters. And when the previous team had gone and tried to follow up on that drill hole, they weren't able to find an extension of the vein. Now we're under a new theory, a new model, where there's a certain dip to the veins, and so with that new projected dip, we're trying to see if we can extend that mineralization. We were very successful with the Wolf deposit, which is just to the south, where we now have a kilometer strike length. And so we've just drilled 3 holes at Chance. We've drilled 6 holes at Moose, 2 at North Star, and then we've done an exploration hole at a target called Red Point. But essentially, the exploration basket of the program is trying to go out and make new discoveries. And so a third of the focus at Homestake, a third of the focus on exploration, regional exploration, property wide, and then the last third is to delineate a resource at the new Wolf deposit. So we've got a kilometer strike length. It's open to the southwest. It's open to the northeast. Going to the northeast, we've drilled holes like hole 329, where we hit about 16 meters of 1,500 grams per ton pure silver. So a kilo and a half over 16 meters. So we're following up to the northeast. We're following down to the southwest. So, look, I see Dolly Varden as one of the best pure play silver growth companies in the space. I celebrate some of our peers like Vizsla Silver and Go Gold. And I look at Dolly Varden as, a premier silver growth company. And with the one differentiator is our project is in Canada, where a lot of our silver peers, you've got to travel much further south.
So going back to sort of where you started during that question to the Homestake silver zone and the Homestake Main. So hole 389 from last year, 79.49 grams per ton gold over 12.45 meters, including 1,335 grams per ton gold and 781 grams per ton silver over about a half meter. So that was just sort of like you were testing the the main the Homestake silver area a bit outside of the resource shell, but the long section shows that there's a pretty open area between Homestake Silver and Homestake Main. So when you say you want to follow up on that big hit from last year and see if you can build some really high grade tonnage there, is that the plan to sort of test in that void, between the two deposits?
Yeah, so there's a larger theme at Dolly Varden, which is you've got 7 deposits over a 15-kilometer trend, and you've got 2 big clusters. So you've got a cluster in the south where you've got a high concentration of silver mineralization, and then you've got a cluster in the north. And there's this theme that we are looking to work towards, which is connecting deposits. So up at Homestake, the distance between the 2 big endowments, Homestake Silver and Homestake Main, there's about a 350-meter gap zone. And so what we're hoping to accomplish this year is to show a connection between the two deposits. And what we've like, there's actually a slide in our presentation. It's page 14 on our deck. And if you looked at page 14, there's an area within Homestake Main where you've got an extremely high grade corridor of mineralization. And what we tried to do last year is we tried to project that plunge, that high grade plunge, and we tried to project it from Maine over to Homestake Silver. And we said, look, there's a certain dip, there's a certain plunge. If, could this have a relationship with the neighboring Homestake Silver? And that's where we started drilling the 22 meters of 630 grams of silver, 10 meters of 1,000 grams of silver. And so we found that plunge. And then we thought, well, what if we try to extend that plunge? Is that plunge extending below the Homestake Main deposit? So we stepped out, and that's where we hit this new gold zone. What's interesting about the new gold zone, though, is the core looks like nothing else we've hit in the past. We actually, one of the analysts over at Haywood described it as being analogous to Brucejack. And, we've since looked at Brucejack core, and there are a lot of similarities. And so, we may be into a different style of mineralization in this new gold zone. It doesn't look like any core that I've seen previously at site.
That's intriguing, and those grades do definitely match up. Very similar with those extremely high grades that you don't see, hardly anywhere in the world. So let's just the program started. You got a long summer ahead, 25,000 meters total. So, always a tricky question to ask a CEO, but take a shot at it, and I'm sure you can handle it, Shawn. How do you report? Do you wait for 10 holes to come back and you batch them? What are your thoughts on how you speak to the market this summer?
That's a really good question. And I think, like you mentioned when we started the conversation around, we have a plan, right? And the plan is to drill 25,000 meters. But, the one thing in exploration is very fluid. And it's the same thing with releasing results. Like last year we drilled something in the neighborhood of about 115 holes, 52,000 meters. So, what we did last year is we probably had about a half dozen press releases. And so what we tried to do is we tried to batch them in areas. So we tried to say, okay, here are the regional exploration results. Here are the wolf drill results. Here are the homestake drill results. We'll try to do something very similar this year and be consistent with that batch approach. But but again, with it being exploration and it being fluid, that is subject to change.
Okay. That makes sense. So, just from a corporate standpoint, Dolly Varden is one of the bigger silver juniors now. It's about a 325 million market cap on the venture in Canada. You mentioned, Vizsla as a company that you respect and see the value in. They're on the Nasdaq. Is it time for Dolly to grow up and list in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think it is. And one of the things that we have to consider as a board is some of the costs. You're looking at about $1 million a year with some of the legal and audit requirements. And so it's about balancing the costs and the reward in terms of distribution. You've got the largest financial market in the world, and so I've been advocating for the company to make that step, but it's not it's like any decision we make. These are calculated decisions. These are well debated and well researched, and but ultimately, yeah, like this is an asset that you know it's an incredible company that really resonates with the American public, because of the rich history. This was the richest silver mine in the British Empire. It was Canada's third largest silver mine. The mining engineer that opened the mine went on to become a president in the United States, Herbert Hoover. So there's, even despite not having a big board US listing, um, most of our volume is driven from our OTC listing. So we do have an active US shareholder. And if you look at, if you look beyond our Toronto listing on DV and you look at the DOLLF, it actually trades pretty significantly uh, relative to our peers on the OTC.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense, and that's true. Um, okay, I think final question, then we'll see if anybody from the audience has one for you. If you do have a question for Shawn, go ahead and click that button to ask to speak, and I'll call on you. Just a general question, so not really a Dolly Varden question, but more of a sector question. This is something I've been thinking about over the last few weeks, especially traveling on some site visits. In the U.S., where we do have a history of mining, but it seems there's lack of new education for a lot of people about mining, and I always have to sort of give my pro mining spiel every time I meet new people who ask me about it. How can we do a better job as a sector in terms of raising the profile of junior mining and making sure that people really understand what this sector is trying to do and why it's important for the world?
That is a great question, and I think one of the challenges is, as an industry, we have. I think the World Gold Council has done a good job at educating the public at what gold is, the history, and I think they've done a very very good job. But we as the mining industry, I think there's a lot of work to do, and not to make any excuses here, but I think if you look at the cyclical nature of these commodity prices and sort of the feast and famine nature of the industry, you know, talking about being better ambassadors, advocates, promoters for how essential mining is for the world is challenging when like the industry has lacked the capital to even replenish inventory through exploration. So, if you look at a sector that, you don't even have, other sectors would refer to it as research and development. If you don't even have money going into R&D, how do you have a strategy and the funds and the capital to promote and create positive awareness? So I'm hoping that with the recent increase in profitability, with the recent increase in metal prices, as companies in the space have done a better job at rewarding their shareholders with dividends and paying off debt, I'm hoping that we now have the capital to put towards showing the world what a positive impact mining does have. I was recently down in Colombia, visiting Eris projects, Colombia's number one gold producer, and through working with artisanal miners and someone called illegal miners. The positive environmental and social impact, um, corporate mining companies have on the world. If people could see, and I think they will, I think organizations like the 60 Minutes of the world and others are going to be drawn to what Eris is doing in Colombia. And I use that as an example of, half of Eris's production comes from local mining that prior to Eris stepping in and working with them, the negative environmental impact that was leading on the environment and some of the social, aspects in the communities, and how that the mining companies come in and given those miners higher recoveries. So those projects are now more profitable for them, but also the positive impacts that it's had on the environment is a great example of how, if we do mining the right way, and the responsible way, where you can create a win-win.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and we need to highlight more of those stories where when it's done the right way and it's done responsibly, it's not a negative for the environment. In fact, it can be a positive. It can be a huge positive for the local population and the economy.
And just further to that point, like I had taken my indigenous partners, the Nishka, with me out to New York, and I think in some parts of the world there's a view in certain places, and I think BC has been unfortunately cast with this idea that we're home to a lot of people that are anti-mining, a lot of NGOs and environmental groups that are against seeing mining move forward in the province. And it's our responsibility. So we started an organization called the BC Regional Mining Alliance, and this you asked the question about how do we become better advocates. So the BC government put up $1 million to promote that BC is open for mining, for business. And so we partnered with the BC government. We partnered with, in our case, it's the Nishka, and a company like Dolly Varden went out, and we went to fund managers in New York, on Wall Street. We went to London, England, to meet with some of the larger resource funds. We went to the Denver Gold Show, in Colorado Springs, and the idea was to show up with our First Nations partners and say, look, the First Nations partners want the project in their backyard. They want the capacity building through employment opportunities, through the benefit agreements, through the tax sharing, through the royalties, and how, if the First Nations partners, who these mines are in their traditional territories, if there are going to be environmental impacts, are going to impact them the most, that sort of the woke, NIMBY, liberal crowds in the metropolitan cities throughout the world who are so anti-mining, where these projects don't necessarily impact them as greatly as they do some of the rural communities. If we have the rural communities showing up saying, we want these jobs. We see the positive impacts that the mining companies are having. You go back and study history. You go back, what got Canada built, what got Canada through the Great Depression was mining. And now, history's got a way of repeating. We're at a time right now where we've got record high debt levels. It's eerily similar to the setup in the 1920s. And my big bet here, and the reason I've devoted the last 20 years to this sector, is because I think we're heading into another 1929 like moment. And I do think what's going to protect us and get us through that is specifically precious metals mining. And so we're working hard to myth bust, and the best way to do that is to work with groups like the Nishka and to just tell our story, right? And so I think Eris is a shining example of how you can take a country like Colombia with all the corruption and all the history of the narcos and the guerrillas, and you can bring order and you can restore the environment, and you can do it in a way where it's commercially positive. I was at a school down there where there's 850 kids that were getting one of the best educations in country, and it was a direct result of a mining company. So those are the stories that we need to get out to the world.
Yeah, hopefully there was a camera crew on that trip and that story will get out there. I'd be happy to reshare that video, because there are a lot of stories, like that, and people are just not aware of them. Shawn, thank you, and I like the what's old is new again. That's a theme for me as well, and sort of my portfolio and my areas of focus. So what's old is new again. And whether it's copper, silver, gold mining, we need more of it. Thank you for your time, and I will put this on my YouTube in the next couple of days, Goldfinger Capital. And of course, you can re-listen to it on X as well at your leisure. Shawn, I'll see you in Florida, I think, in a little over a month. You'll be at the Rule Conference, right?
I will. Looking forward to seeing you down there. And yeah, if I get any good content, some of these good videos that share a positive message, happy to share it with you, and be grateful if you could repost them.
Will do. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Cheers.
All the best. Take care.
Bye.